I'm back again. This time I'm going to do a review of two movies as sort of a comparison. The first movie I'm going to talk about is Parts, the Clonus are, or just simply Clonus, depending on how it was released. This came out from Mondo Macabro. It was made in 1979. It was directed by Robert S. Fiveson. Stars Peter Graves, Keenan Wynn, Tim Donnelly, Dick Sargent, and that's pretty much all the people I know. Peter Graves, he went on to host Unsolved Mysteries for a long time, but Tim Donnelly, he's best known as playing Chet on Emergency. And Dick Sargent, of course, he was the second Darren on Bewitched. He also played a sheriff every now and then on the Dukes of Hazzard during season 2, during that little time where they lost James Best for a while. But James Best eventually came back and played Roscoe. But the reason why I'm talking about these two movies, I'll get to in a moment. But Parts, the Clonus Horror, as I said, was made in 1979. This DVD came out through Mondo Macabro. It has a interview with the director, it has a director's audio commentary, and the original trailer. But what the movie is about is a colony of people that are living in this colony, and they strive to get to America. That's their goal. Every now and then one of them's picked. They win a trip to America. And that's what their whole existence is about, to work, to be happy, and to try to win a trip to America. When you win a trip to America, you've won the game. But these people aren't really supposed to have any other thoughts than wanting to get to America. That's really their only motivation in life. I mean, they're all happy to work, except for this one guy played by Tim Donnelly. He starts to question things, so he starts snooping around the facility near where the village is where they work, because when people start acting strange, the guards start getting kind of squirrely around them and start talking into their earpieces or whatever to each other. Says, number 7 is acting strange. What should we do? And then he winds up getting called into the office and they talk to him, maybe reprogram him or something. But this one guy, he decides to go exploring, and he goes into the um, building where all of the stuff is happening. And the last guy that won a trip to America is played by Frank Ashmore. His name wasn't listed on the back of the box, but he's most famously known. He was V. He played Martin in the TV miniseries V. If you've seen that, but anyway, he won a trip to America. And Tim Donnelly finds his way up into the higher levels of the compound there and discovers that they're actually killing this guy that just won his trip to America. And he wonders, why are they doing that? So he moves along, and they do actually kill the guy. And he goes back down, tries to tell other people about this. Of course, you've got the guards that are noticing this, and they're just like, well, let's keep an eye on him and make sure he don't do anything else. And he convinces this girl about it, but she doesn't really want to do anything, and to just eliminate that whole matter, she wins a trip to America. And he tries to stop him, but it doesn't work, and she wins her trip to America. Well, then this Tim Donnelly's character decides, well, he just wants to get out of there. So he manages to escape. Meanwhile, they're showing scenes of Peter Graves. He's like a congressman or something. But he's got some kind of cancer or something. He needs an organ transplant. And so Tim Donnelly breaks out and makes it out into the real world, and he's just surprised by everything that's going on. There's cars, there's people everywhere. And he tries to figure out if he belongs in this world. Eventually, he figures out that there's a man in this world who's exactly like him, and that he is a clone made for no other reason than just to harvest his organs for when this guy gets sick. And that's Peter Graves' character. So he tries to go back to free everybody, but winds up not being able to get back, I think. It's been a while since I watched it. But and I can't really remember how that movie ends, but it's a really good movie. I've seen it a few times, but like I said, it's been a while. And I do remember the clone aspect of it, harvesting the organs for people that are dying out in the real world. So I'm going to move along from that movie to the second movie I'm going to talk about. And you'll see why these two movies are related in a moment. This movie is called The Island. Stars Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson. Okay. Ewan McGregor, he's living in this like utopian world, much like Tim Donnelly was in Clonus, or parts Clonus horror. And Scarlett Johansson is as well. And their whole motivation for living there is to work and to strive to get to the island, to win a ticket to the island. And somebody wins a ticket to the island. This is one of his friends, I believe, and he knows a guy that works down in the maintenance of the underworkings of the building, so he goes down there to see him, but then he decides to just go off and explore on his own, and he realizes that this person that just won the trip to the island was actually being killed and the organs were being harvested. So he goes back down into the village and tries to convince Scarlett Johansson's character of this. Let's see what their characters' names were. Well, doesn't really say. This movie was directed by Michael Bay. Just makes mindless action movies, which is not a bad thing. But anyway, I think his name's like Echo or something like that. And I can't remember what Scarlett Johansson's name is, but anyway, the guards are seeing this stuff transpire. So Scarlett Johansson wins a trip to the island. And he goes up there to try to rescue her because he knows what's going to happen because he's already seen it. And he does manage to rescue her and they escape from there and go out into the real world. He finds his buddy that works down in the maintenance area and goes to his house. Well, I think he finds him in a bar, and then he goes to his house. And he tries to explain to him who he is. He's a clone of this other dude he's like a daredevil or whatever, and he keeps getting hurt. And because of this, he's eventually going to need some spare parts. So on this island, they grow people just to harvest their organs. They're actually clones. Now, take these two movies, The Island and Parts the Clonus are. This movie is actually a remake of this movie, but it was totally unsolicited. The writer of The Island, whoever it was, and Michael Bay, producers. I assume it was produced by Jerry Bruckheimer at some point, but it never said that it was based on anything. So they didn't give any credit to Parts the Clonus are. And they paid a fairly steep price for that. The big budget 2005 DreamWorks production, The Island, also about a colony that breeds clones for harvesting organs for the elite, mirrors parts the Clonus are in numerous ways. The makers of Clonus sued the makers of The Island for copyright infringement on August 25th, 2006. The court presiding over the case deemed that there was enough evidence there for it to move to trial. Now, according to a 2007 interview with Clonus screenwriter Bob Sullivan, DreamWorks and Clonus associates reached a settlement. The specific terms are sealed. According to Sullivan, the amount settled on was in the seven-figure range, so you're looking at least over $10 million that the makers of this movie had to pay the makers of this movie because they just didn't go through the right channels. Now, is that a bad thing or a good thing? it's bad when you copy somebody else's movie and pretend like it's your own. Did they know that they were copying a movie? Because honestly, this movie here is a very good movie. But is it well known? Honestly, no. It got better known in 1997 when it was done as part of um, Mystery Science Theater 3000. They done their riff of it on MST3K back in 1997. So the makers of The Island should have known that that movie existed. And it's just not a coincidence that this plot in that movie is the same as the plot in this movie. And they should have known. And probably did know and just didn't care. They figured, well, nobody watched that movie. I think Bart's Clonus Horror was made on a budget of $257,000. That was pretty low even for 1979 standards. Let's see what the budget was on The Island. The budget on The Island was $126 million. So, and it grossed $162.9 million. So they made absolutely no money on The Island because any profits they made probably went back to the makers of Parts the Clonus Horror. Now, the thing about it is, this is not the first time that this story was done either. But the other example of this was called The Resurrection of Zachary Wheeler. It was made in 1972. And it wasn't exactly the same thing. They were breeding lifeless clones that they could then imprint a person's sort of biomatrix onto when they're needed, and they would just have a whole body. So they just had a bunch of faceless, lifeless, well, they weren't lifeless, they were walking around, but they had no form. They were like walking mannequins, really. And then if somebody got killed in an accident, which is what happened in that movie, I think Zachary Wheeler was a congressman, and he was killed in an automobile accident. A newspaper reporter was there to get the story about it, played by Leslie Nielsen. And when he got to the hospital, they said they would answer his questions, but when he got to the hospital, they told him the congressman was fine. There was nothing, there was no story, there was no wreck, there was no nothing. So he started digging to try to figure this out. And he discovered this clone farm. But like I said, these clones were mainly just walking mannequins. They had no form or anything. It's just like when somebody like that congressman dies, they would just take their biomatrix and implant it onto the clone, giving it its form and everything. The clones were just mainly blank slates, so to speak. But that's all I've got for this video. Probably rambled a bit much, but yeah, I would recommend both of these movies. And if you can find it, The Resurrection of Zachary Wheeler's not a bad movie, but I don't think it's ever been released on DVD. I actually just found a version of it on, I think I found it online somewhere and downloaded it and watched it, but It's actually a pretty good movie too. But if you like action, I mean, nobody does action better than Michael Bay. But if you like more cerebral type horror sci-fi, and if you ask me, this is a better movie than this. But that's just one man's opinion. I would give that in 4 stars. This I'd probably give about 2.5, 3. But that's just me. The Resurrection of Zachary Wheeler, I'd probably give about 3. But other than that, that's about all I have for this video. Throw it a thumbs up if you like it. Throw it a thumbs down if you don't. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what I can improve on these videos. Or let me know where I'm going wrong. I'll see you on the next one.